Welcome boys to today's class. I think whatever we have already discussed in earlier class is clear to you. Now in today's class we'll start with what are blood vessels of that same chapter only. Now the blood vessels are tubes which carry blood, or we can say the thin pipes or tubes which carry blood in the body are called blood vessels. Now there are three types of blood vessels in our body. These are arteries, capillaries and veins. Now first of all, what are arteries? Now, arteries are the blood vessels which carry blood away from the heart to the various organs of the body. The arteries have thick elastic walls because the blood emerges from the heart into them under high pressure. That is why their walls are thick and elastic. On reaching a tissue or organ, the arteries divide into smaller and smaller vessels to bring the blood in contact with all the individual cells. The extremely small blood vessels, whose walls are only 1 cell thick, are called capillaries. The exchange of material between the blood and the surrounding cells take place across the thin capillary walls. The capillaries then join together to form bigger blood vessels called veins. Okay. Now veins. Veins are the blood vessels which collect the blood coming from different organs through capillaries and bring it back to the heart. Veins do not have thick walls because the blood flowing in them is not under high pressure. Veins have bulbs in them to ensure that the blood flows in them in only one direction. So, like heart, in heart we have seen that in heart there are bulbs are there which prevents the backflow of the blood circulation. Now here in case of veins also there are bulbs are there to ensure that the blood flows in them in only one direction. Now next we will discuss about clotting of blood. Now what is clotting of blood? Clotting of blood is the process to prevent excess bleeding. Blood platelets and some proteins form clot so as to prevent further bleeding. Now you have noticed that whenever we get injured or say by accidentally when we cut our fingers or any body parts, or if there is any bruises or scraps or all these things, after some time bleeding stops, because if bleeding continues for longer period of time, or say if a huge amount of blood comes out from our body, then it is dangerous. One may die also due to excessive bleeding which occurs during say accidents and all. Now, that clotting, it occurs due to the self-sealing material present in blood. Now the sealant is always present in an active form, which is called as fibrinogen. A clot forms only when this plasma protein, that fibrinogen, is converted to its active form, fibrin, which aggregates into threads that form a framework of the clot. The process of clot formation at the site of blood loss from the body is called clotting or coagulation. Now, blood clotting or blood coagulation, it involves a series of chemical reactions which culminate in the formation of fibrin threads. As I told you earlier, that fibrin threads, it forms a network at the injured site to stop the leaking, to stop the bleeding process. Now, clotting of blood prevents further loss of blood and entry of pathogenic microorganism. What is pathogenic microorganism? The microorganism that causes diseases in our body. So, if there is any damage or leakage, not only that, through this blood will come out, but these pathogenic microorganisms also will get chance to enter into our body. So, blood clotting prevents bleeding and also prevents entry of pathogenic microorganism. Blood clotting involves participation of many substances like calcium ions, commonly known as clotting factors or coagulation factors. The entire clotting process can be divided for convenience into 4 basic stages. What are those 4 basic stages? In first stage, or first step, the formation of enzymes occurs. The enzyme thrombokinase or thromboplastin by the injured tissue cells and the platelets. So these enzymes forms by the injured tissue cells and the platelets. And what is the name of the enzyme? It is thrombokinase or thromboplastin. At the second stage, these thrombokinase and calcium ion convert the plasma protein into prothrombin formed by the liver into enzyme thrombin. At the next stage, the enzyme thrombin converts soluble fibrinogen. Okay, it converts soluble fibrinogen, which is formed by liver, into insoluble fibrin. Now here, note carefully what is fibrin, because a short question comes from what is fibrin. Fibrin is a solid substance that forms thread. These microscopic threads or fibrin are sticky and form a network, that is mesh at the wound. At the last stage, stage 4, the blood corpuscles get entangled in the mesh and together settle down as a clot or thrombus. So these are the 4 stages of blood clotting. Clotting within an intact blood vessels, usually a vein, is called thrombosis. The clot may dissolve spontaneously. So this is the process of blood clotting. Now next we'll go to what are the functions of blood. Now let us see what are the main functions of blood. Number 1, transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Blood transports oxygen from the respiratory surface, that is lungs, buccal cavity, to the body tissues, and carbon dioxide from tissues to the respiratory surfaces. So it transports oxygen from the respiratory surface, for example buccal cavity, lungs, to the body tissues, defined body tissues, and during these metabolic activities, whatever carbon dioxide is formed, blood collects this carbon dioxide from the tissues and brings it back to the respiratory surface. Second function of blood is transport of food items. Blood transports digested food to defined cells of the body. Transport of waste products. Blood transports the waste products of cells and organs to the kidneys, lungs, skin, and intestine so that they may be eliminated. Next function of blood is chemical coordination. Now, hormones produced by different endocrine glands in our body are distributed to the vital tissues by the blood only. We know that endocrine glands are ductless glands. They secrete hormone directly into the blood, and blood carries these hormones to the target organs or to the vital tissues of the body. Next function of blood is defense against infection. Very important function. Now, when bacteria or any other disease-causing pathogens enters the body, it is destroyed by WBCs. WBCs is white blood corpuscles. Okay. Now, one type of WBCs is called lymphocytes. Lymphocytes. Now, one type of WBCs called lymphocytes produce antibodies against specific pathogen. Remember one thing, in health nutrition also you have studied that whenever germs enters into our body, they secrete a type of chemicals which are termed as antigens. Sensing the presence of antigens, WBCs produce another type of chemicals which are termed as antibodies. And so immunity against the disease is created in the body. Next, clotting of blood. To prevent excess bleeding, blood platelets and some proteins form clot so as to prevent further bleeding. Just now we have discussed about clotting of blood. Next function of blood is water balance. Blood maintains body temperature constant and distributes and exchange water between cytoplasm of cells. The blood helps in blood helps in water balance in our body. Next function of blood is temperature regulation. Heat produced by deeper tissues is taken to the body surface so that it may be given out, and thus body temperature is maintained. The blood also helps in temperature regulation. Next function of blood is maintenance of pressure. Arteries produce a proper pressure of blood that helps to balance the atmospheric pressure. Maintenance of body pH. In RBC or red blood corpuscles, some carbon dioxide combines with water to form carbonic acid, H2CO3, that is dissociated into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate ion. These ions combine with other ions of plasma to maintain a constant pH in our body. Now we'll discuss about what is lymph. Now, lymph is a fluid which is also involved in the transport in human body. This happens as follows. The blood capillary walls are so thin that they leak. A liquid called tissue fluid leaks through them, that is from the blood, into tiny spaces between the body cells. Tissue fluids carries oxygen and food from the blood to the cells and washes away their wastes. Most tissue fluids seeps back into blood, but some tissue fluid drains into lymph capillaries carrying protein, digested fats, germs and bits of dead cells with it. It becomes lymph. The lymph capillaries join to make a larger lymph vessels. These lymph vessels drain into lymph glands. Here the lymph is cleaned up by white blood cells called lymphocytes. What is that? It's called lymphocytes. They eat up germs and dead cells and also make antibodies. Clean lymph is returned to the bloodstream through lymph vessels, which join large veins in the neck. Now we'll see what are the various functions of lymph. Lymph takes part in the nutritive process of the body. For example, it puts into circulation large protein molecules by carrying them from the tissues into the bloodstream, which could not be absorbed by blood capillaries due to their large size. Lymph also carries digested fat for the nutritive process. Next function of lymph is lymph protects the body by killing the germs drained out of the body tissues with the help of lymphocytes contained in the lymph glands and by making antibodies. Another function of lymph is lymph helps in removing the waste products like fragments of dead cells, etc. So these are the major functions of lymph. So that's all for today. In my next class, I'll discuss about the transportation in plants. So till then, bye, see you.